Canvas's accessibility checker is available in the Rich Content Editors. This tool allows you to run accessibility checks on your content. Remember, the accessibility checker does not check for all issues, and it does not check for content you may link to or from other sources. To access the accessibility checker, navigate to the Edit button in your Canvas instance. Select the Edit button in the upper right corner. Once you're in the Rich Text Editor, navigate to the bottom right corner of the editor. There will be the accessibility icon. This is a human figure inside of a circle, and usually there'll be a number if there are issues being flagged. And in this case on the screen, we have 8 issues being flagged by the accessibility checker. To open the checker, select the icon. The accessibility checker will slide out from the right side of the screen, and you will be able to go through each of the issues individually. Example issues that we have on the page are there are heading levels should not be skipped. There's actions that Canvas will let you take. In this case, we could leave it as is. We can fix the hierarchy or let Canvas do it for us, or we can remove the heading style altogether. So if we navigate into our content and see that if I place my cursor on top of the heading that's marked formatted structure, that heading is listed as a heading 2. If I come down to the marked content that is being raised as an issue and place my cursor on the heading structure heading, this one is showing that it is a heading level 4. Then there is a skipped heading level of missing that heading 3. So in this case, we're going to take some action. We're going to use the drop down and we're going to let Canvas fix the heading hierarchy. And that is going to change that heading structure heading to an heading level 3. To apply your changes, you're going to select the Apply button, and that will save any changes you make. The next issue raised by the accessibility checker is headings should not contain more than 120 characters. This often happens if a paragraph has been selected as a heading structure and instead of a paragraph style. So if I place my cursor on this paragraph text, we'll notice it is set as a heading 4. So to change this content, we can select the change heading tag to paragraph, and that will change us back to our paragraph style, and then we can select the apply button to save the change. Another issue that the accessibility checker will flag is for list items that are not coded as lists. In this case, I have a list of ingredients that have been separated by dashes, but not the bullet points. So in this case, each line is on its individual, and because there's limited punctuation, this could read to screen readers as one long run-on sentence. The accessibility checker offers us the option to format the list for us by selecting the checkbox, and this then will condense the list items down into a single list. It'll actually change the dashes to a bullet points and give it a little bit more of an indentation, so it gives it a little bit more visual prominence. This also will allow screen readers to know when the list starts, the list ends, and how many items are in the list. To save your changes, we'll select the Apply button. Another issue that can be raised by the accessibility checker is when you have adjacent links that have the same URL. Now, the accessibility checker wants this to become a single link where you can merge them together. Now, in some cases, this may not be necessary. So as we're looking at the example here, we have reggieredbird@ilstu.edu, and then there is a link for email that is also, if we open up, going to the exact same place. So in this case, the accessibility checker wants to merge the links, but technically you don't need both the email or you don't need both the links. So we're going to keep just the reggieredbird@ilstu.edu, and we are going to remove the email link. So therefore, we only have one link going to one location and not two. And I'm going to just select the next button here because we're going to move on to the next because we changed everything in the content. If I were to close out of the accessibility checker and reopen it back up, that issue is no longer there because it's no longer being flagged. The next issue that we have, and if you'll also notice on this page, I mentioned earlier that the accessibility checker does not flag for all issues. In this case, it is not flagging this really long, complicated URL. So there is still some need for manual reviews to make sure that your content is in accessible manner, because we do not want to make sure to have these long URLs that take up multiple lines. The next issue the checker does check for is color contrast. So here we have an issue where the text larger than 18 point or 14 point bold should be display minimum contrast ratio of 3:1. The content on the page is a heading that is choose color carefully, and the word color is in yellow on a white background. So in this case, we need to change the color of the word color. To do that, we can go in and change the RGBA. If you know the code for it, you can type that into the box. Otherwise, you can move the color around and pick a different color on the color spectrum. Now, when the color meets the minimum contrast ratio, the apply button, which is currently disabled, will be enabled to be selected. So when you hit a color range that does fulfill the color contrast minimums, you can then select the apply button to save your change. Another issue that the checker is going to bring up is that file names should not be used as alt attributes to describe image content. This often happens when you copy and paste an image over from another source. If there is no alt text information, Canvas will automatically populate the alt text with the image's file name. And this should not be used as an alt text. In many cases, the file names tend not to be helpful as alt text. So to do this, we'll just go into the text box for changing alt text, and we'll update the alt text for the image. And in this case, we are going to describe the image as a tree grows in the middle of an accessible ramp blocking the entry. To make your change, you're going to select the apply button. Should the image be decorative, this is like if it's a squirrel or something that is not providing context to your page, you can then choose the decorative image box, which will then cause screen readers to skip over the image. Use this very sparingly and cautiously, because if you are putting images into your content, it usually is going to have some meaning for in some way. So use the decorative image option sparingly. Always then check to make sure there is appropriate alt text on your images. Another issue that is often flagged with the accessibility checker is making sure that tables have the appropriate captions to describe the content. In this case, there is a caption at the top, but it's not associated as the caption. So what we can do is we can take what the caption of and add it in there and remove the content above. And so we have our caption for our table, which was the original caption, except it was outside the table or the semantic of the HTML table. And we can select apply. So now when screen readers navigate into the table, it'll automatically read the caption. And in this case, it'll say which of the following is your primary desktop or laptop screen reader. Another table issue that is raised by accessibility checkers is tables should have at least one header. And in this case, it could be a header row or it could be the header column. The case of the table that we have on the screen, it would actually be both. And Canvas allows us the options to set the header row, column, or both. And in this option, we can choose both. And that actually will give us a little visual distinction between the data cells versus the header cells, which are now a little bit more bold and centered in their cells. To make your change, we're going to hit apply. And then once there is no issues detected, the accessibility checker will give you a lovely balloon icon and say no issue or accessibility issues are detected. Yay, we have cleaned up our page for accessibility. You can close out of the accessibility checker by using the close button in the top right corner and then making sure you save your page. So all your edits have been saved and applied and passed on to your students.